guys, Will here from the St. Johns County Public Library System, and we're here for another edition of Homeschool Histories. So this month's topic is something a little different. I actually haven't done this before, so let's jump right into it. So this month we're talking about the Pony Express and the Telegraph. And I know those probably feel like they're two separate topics, but they really wanted to accomplish the same goal. So in the early 1800s, the United States really starts expanding its borders, eventually incorporating places like California into its borders. And that really pressed the need to be able to communicate effectively with everyone living within our territory. So the United States is about 3,000 miles across. That's a long distance, and that was even longer in some ways in the 1800s. We didn't have a railroad that went across the United States. We didn't have telephones. We didn't have things like the telegraph. A mail system did not exist that would take mail from the East Coast to the West Coast and back. So it was really hard to get news across the whole United States. So these are the two ways that Americans tried to deal with that issue. So one of the first ways Americans tried to get communication from the East Coast to the West Coast consistently and efficiently was the Pony Express. And the Pony Express is a mail delivery service where riders used horses to carry the mail across the United States. It didn't last very long. It was from April 3rd, 1860 to October 24th, 1861. So a little over a year. It was pretty successful in that year, though. It was owned and operated by Cleveland Overland, California, and Pikes Peak Express Company. That's kind of a mouthful. And they're the ones who created the idea and submitted for funding to make it happen. And they boasted a 10-day delivery speed for mail. Now, this wasn't the average speed, but all accounts agree that it was possible for a rider to start in Missouri and get to California in 10 days with a piece of mail, which is really fast, especially at this time that had no roads. So who paid for it? So even though this company, the Pikes Peak Company, put up money, they really relied on investments, especially from the United States government. Most of the funding was supported by the government, and unfortunately, it never made a profit. Pricing was about $5 to send a letter when it first started, and that's about $140 today. Even when they dropped the price to $1 per letter, and this is a small letter, it's still really expensive for people at the time. $1, most people didn't make $1 a day. They might be lucky to make $1 or $2 a week, depending on their job. So this really priced most Americans out of the system, which is one of its biggest issues, is that it was too expensive for people to use. And I know it says from East Coast to West Coast, but they didn't start, on Washington, D.C. They didn't start somewhere in Virginia. They started in Missouri and moved to California. The East Coast had some railroad systems. They had a way to get the mail to Missouri pretty quickly. It was that big span between about the Mississippi River all the way to California that was the real problem. There's about 186 to maybe 190 stations, about 10 miles apart. So you would have a rider with their bag, they'd ride to one station and change horses so the horses wouldn't, tire out. And sometimes they actually change riders because that's a long way to ride as just one person. The entire route is almost 2,000 miles long. I don't know if anyone's ridden a horse, but I can barely stay on one for an hour. I can't think about riding one that long. So it's a pretty arduous route, and the Pony Express really relied on teenage boys to be the riders. These were the boys who were probably the ones, we could say, brave enough or didn't really think of the consequences. It earned a pretty good pay, and it was something exciting for them to do, to say they could, they were helping America out by delivering this mail. So you have here some of the postal stamp marks, so what they look like for the Pony Express. There's not a lot of mail left, but we do, the Library of Congress and some other places have some examples of the mail. You have different flyers, advertising this new Pony Express system to deliver mail. This image right here depicts two different things. And it's going to go into our next topic. This guy right here is a rider for the Pony Express, and these workers right here are putting up what would be the telegraph system. And so next we have the telegraph, and the telegraph kills the Pony Express. The Pony Express is already dying because of how much money it took to finance it and keep it running, all the horses that had to be fed and paid for, the wages of the riders. When the telegraph was successful and cheaper and faster, that really, really, was the final nail in the coffin for the Pony Express. So you have a man named Samuel Morse who helped create the single wire telegraph system and Morse code. And this is the first system that they use for the telegraph. So single wire is just communication goes on one wire from different points. He's not the creator of the telegraph, but he really helped create a consistent, reliable relay from point A to point B. Europeans at the time were also working on a similar system, so he just kind of helped them beat them to the punch, for more, lack of a better term. He is the one who's credited with making this system for communication, series of dots and dashes on a little beeper. You might have seen some movies in it, and I'll show you what it looks like in a second. So by the 1830s, a telegraph is now a reliable, efficient way to communicate. And they have telegraphs set up on the East Coast. The big issue is getting telegraph from the East Coast to the West Coast and to be able to communicate effectively and no breaks in the line. The telegraph grows. By the 1850s, the East Coast is crisscrossed with them. So Americans start thinking, hey, this could really be useful to communicate with the West Coast pretty effectively. And it's importantly financially successful even from the start. Even though you had to have money to build the infrastructure and to pay people how to train them, how to use the equipment, it was still really cheap to send a telegraph or a telegram via telegraph lines. And so it quickly turned a profit. People were excited to use new technology. 2 days after the transcontinental telegraph sent its first message, the Pony Express officially disbands. It's kind of sad. It was successful for the year it worked, at least if you look at mail delivery. Eventually, like all technology, they want to upgrade it. It's working well. Let's find a way to do this better. So the telegraph upgrades to a multi-line system that was erected parallel to the Transcontinental Railroad. So you can send more messages, traffic is going up, so it allows them to take more traffic across these lines for communication a lot more easily. And those two systems are the first reliable ways that Americans have to communicate across the United States effectively. So it's now going to be, if some major news happens in Washington, D.C., it takes a fraction of the time to get to the West Coast now. And vice versa. Families can keep up with extended families that perhaps move out west, but some stay back east. So it connects Americans in a way that they weren't able to be connected previously. And again, Europeans also work on this. Europeans end up having a telegraph system themselves. Eventually, the two telegraph systems, one in Europe and the one in the United States, they find a way to lay lines underneath the ocean so they can communicate between continents as well. But that came a little bit later. So even though we don't use telegraphs today, this is like, in a way, like the cell phone of the time. Like people were amazed they could communicate so quickly. So this was a big deal for Americans in communication. So now we're going to jump into the activity, and you're going to need a partner for this. So if you have a brother or sister, cousin, family member, whoever, a friend, you're going to make your own Morse code messages with the Morse code sheet. And then you're going to exchange them with your friend, and you're each going to decipher those messages. You're going to use this code right here. This is the International Morse Code. That's pretty standard today. It's changed a couple times from when Samuel Morse first created his code, but this is the one that you can send out a message today, and as long as someone's training it around the world, they'll know what your message is trying to say. I'm going to do this activity with you, and I'm going to go get help to do it because, like I said, we need a partner, and I will meet you over at my desk in just a minute. All right, guys, so we're here with the hands-on portion of our Morse code activity. I have my phone here with the International Morse Code image. Now, usually Morse code is like a sound, like a tapping, or you can use flashlights to turn on and off, stuff like that. But we don't have that set up, so we're just going to write dots and dashes on paper. And it's something simple you can do with a partner. And then after we write our messages to one another, we're going to then decipher our message. So this is my message. And I did it as one word per each line to make it easier for my partner to decipher my message. So we're going to exchange now. All right, and now we get to decode. All right, so this is the message that I received. And thumbs up that it's correct. You put your thumb on that. Okay, yay. And this is the message that I gave. And so she deciphered it correctly. But you can see I messed up. So it's okay if you mess up. Morse code is, people still get trained, and you have to have a lot of learning and education on it to use it properly. So if you mess up, it's okay. No one's going to judge you for it. And that's the end of this month's homeschool history. I hope you guys had fun learning about the Pony Express and the Telegraph, and I will see you all soon. Have a good day.